Hello my fellow skeptics and Christians, Jacob here. So I came across a video made by a young sweet girl who thinks she got me figured out. You see, I made a video which presents one reason I believe most atheists reject the God of the Bible. I had previously called it the only reason atheists reject God, but I felt that was a little narrow-minded. However, I do believe that the sum of most arguments made against God boil down to this one reason, which is God's existence. So let's see what Rachel Oates has to say about it.
Hi everyone, my name's Rachel, and if you don't know, sometimes I quite like to talk about atheism here on my YouTube channel. If this is your first atheist video of mine, hi! And if you're coming back here for more, also hi. Today I want to talk a little bit about a YouTube channel that I've seen recommended on quite a few of my videos. This kid is a Christian who's been making a couple of videos about, his beliefs in Christianity and things like that. And I will say, this is a really, really tiny channel, and I don't mean...
Hey, you know what they say, it's not size that matters, but the quality that's being presented, the information that's being presented.
Any disrespect to him, I don't want any kind of, hate towards him or anything like that. I think he seems like a sweet kid. It's great to see that he's so kind of passionate about a lot of his ideas and things like that. But he made one particular video about atheists, and I just felt that it deserved a little bit of a video response, because there was more that I wanted to say than I could just put in a text comment. And also, I just wanted to kind of make sure that he's aware, and that other people who share his beliefs are aware, that there is quite a lot of flaws in his knowledge base, especially...
Say what now? I don't believe I made any knowledge claims in my video, but I'm willing to hear you out.
Around kind of geography and science and things like that. So a lot of the examples he gave, there are a lot of issues with, and that's just what I want to talk about today. One thing I will say is that I am going to be talking about a couple of little sciencey bits in this, so as always I will leave a few extra links in the description below if you want to go and do a little bit of reading on any of the topics. Today, just for a change, I haven't really left any academic links. They're mostly just kind of like popular science and websites and blog posts and things like that.
Well, no wonder you think you have me figured out. You've been listening to atheist propaganda.
So that they're really easy and accessible for everyone to read, but they're still really, really interesting and really informative. So hopefully you'll enjoy them. So let's just get right into the video and let's respond to this guy.
Have you ever talked to an atheist about the Bible? But when you talk to them about the Bible and how God intervenes in the affairs of man, they're always looking for naturalistic explanations for proof of God. It has to fit their worldview in order for them to accept it.
Well, yeah, naturalistic proof would be the most believable, but to be honest...
Material proof is impossible to give, especially if we're talking about uncaused, unmoved movers who aren't subject to the material world made up of space-time. However, because we know that space-time came into existence, we can at least make the assumption that there must be something beyond our limited perception of the material world. Just think about it. If there was no space or time, then where would you be able to put the matter? Or at what time could you put it?
Any proof would be great. The fact is that to believe that God exists, I want solid evidence, objective evidence. I want evidence which we can replicate and gather from experiments. I want reliable...
Okay, Rachel, but where is your need for evidence when it concerns the atheist worldview, that there is nothing beyond our reality of space-time? Or where is your need for evidence when it concerns evolution? Just ask Richard Dawkins for proof.
Can you give an example of a genetic mutation or an evolutionary process which can be seen to increase the information in the genome? Can you just stop? I think I'm recording. Okay. There's a popular misunderstanding of evolution which says that fish turned into reptiles and reptiles turned into mammals, and so somehow we ought to be able to look around the world today and look at our ancestors. We ought to be able to
to see the intermediates between fish and reptiles, and between reptiles and mammals. We ought to be able to see fish kind of on the way to becoming reptiles. But of course that's not the way it is at all. Fish are modern animals. They're just as modern as we are. They're descended from ancestors which we're descended from. Way back 300 million years ago, there would have been an ancestor, which was the ancestor of modern fish and the ancestor of modern humans. And that ancestor, if you could have been there then, you could have seen the first steps towards a fish, say, coming out onto the land and becoming something like an amphibian. But that was a long time ago. You wouldn't expect to see that today. And so quite a lot of the misunderstanding of evolution, I suppose, stems from the fact that people are looking at modern animals and thinking that Darwin has said we're descended from them. Well, we're not. We're not descended from modern fish. We're not descended from modern monkeys. We're not descended from modern apes. They are modern animals just as we are. They're our cousins. They're not our ancestors.
In other words, there is no evidence, and didn't you see how he just totally avoided the question? Let's go back to what she asked.
Can you give an example of a genetic mutation or an evolutionary process which can be seen to increase the information in the genome?
Now, if you can't see the obvious dodge there, then I really need to question your intellect.
To be honest, any proof would be great. The fact is that to believe that God exists, I want solid evidence, objective evidence. I want evidence which we can replicate and gather from experiments. I want reliable and accurate evidence. I don't mind what form it's in as long as we can't refute it. I'm not asking for a God.
Well, I do provide a logic and reason-based argument for why the existence of a God who is not held subject to space-time is needed for the universe to have come into existence in my video called Dear Atheists, the Logic and Reason Behind God. Can you refute the argument I present there? And I'm hoping for a more alternative argument besides the usual, well, we don't know, because the logic I present is based on knowledge and reason.
It looks like anything else on this planet. I'm just asking for some kind of proof that a God in whatever form exists.
So, for example... Do you hear that? I said, for example. Notice how I specifically state that the demonstration that I'm going to give is merely an example to express a greater point. Keep this in mind because Rachel thinks that I actually believe this occurred. Whenever we talk about the continents expanding, let's say that God took a continent, right? Let's pretend this is a continent, and he picked it up and moved it over here, okay? And he did this before any of us could observe it, or at least any of us living now. He did it at a time before any of us observed it. And at this current time, we see all continents moving at a certain rate very, very slowly. And atheists will say that because we can see this continent moving at a slow rate, then it must have taken it millions of years for it to move to where it's at right now.
So this example is kind of the main bulk of the problem I have with this video, in that it just seems a little bit ill-informed. And I have to ask this kid, does he know anything about tectonics and just physical geography in general?
And do you know anything about the difference between an example and that which should be taken literal?
I honestly see no problem with us as people and, scientists and stuff going out there, observing current trends and patterns and using that data to extrapolate back to hypothesize about things that happened in the past. There's no...
I too do not see any problem with scientists looking at the world from our limited perspective. That goes way beyond the underlying assertion I make in this video. My main point here is that simply because we see things as they are today does not mean that things have always been that way. If God intervened in the affairs of man or nature in the past, there would be no way for us to prove it. I'm glad you agree, however, that these are simply hypotheses that we present. You can't fathom how many times I've heard atheists assert that their opinions concerning these hypotheses are 100% scientific fact and somehow disprove God.
Problem with that. I mean, we literally, today, we are seeing the Atlantic Ocean become wider and bigger. We are seeing the continents moving apart. We can literally observe the mid-Atlantic.
Again, I did not argue that the continents aren't the way they are today because they moved slowly over a long period of time. However, if we assume a God exists, then it was pre-planned from the beginning of creation.
Ridge in front of us, and that's just one example of the continents moving. And I mean, if that's happening now, why would you think that wasn't happening in the past? There's no evidence to suggest that it just suddenly started one day, so we can assume that it's been happening for quite a while. And the thing is,
notice how I did not say that the continental drifts isn't a real phenomenon. Atheists who I've debated oftentimes put words in my mouth to try to make it seem as if my assertions are illogical. I'm not really sure if they even do it on purpose. I think that they have a hard time paying attention because, like most people, they have a bias towards different ideas.
It's not just that this current observable evidence is all that we have. You just need to look at the fossil records. I got one particular example from the National Geographic site, which talks about the Mesosaurus. Why am I so bad with pronunciations? I think it's the Mesosaurus. And basically, it's this reptile that was only about 1 meter long, so it's not very big. And the interesting thing is that the only places fossils have been found are in South Africa and South America. And from what we understand about this reptile, him being so small and everything else, he couldn't possibly have swum the entire width of the
Okay.
ocean. That would just be crazy. So if he couldn't swim over there, how did the same species end up on 2 different continents? Yes, you could say, oh, well, God just put him there. That doesn't really explain anything. That doesn't make sense. The truth is that the best possible explanation is that those 2 land masses were once a lot closer together, and that the animal could literally travel between them. That's the only explanation for the evidence we have that makes sense. I don't see why anyone could have a problem with this, really.
But if you believe Again, my argument had nothing to do with geography, and notice how I'm not going around saying that God put this here and that there. The only assertion I make in this video is that atheists don't leave any room in their ideology for God's existence, and they attack Christians with the view that God doesn't exist. If they want to address Christianity, they need to do so in the context of there being a God. Show inconsistencies with it and the reality that we observe.
A God, then it is easy for you to accept the idea that a God moved it. So, whenever you argue with an atheist and they start giving you naturalistic questions having to do with their personal beliefs about science and the unobserved, then you know for a fact that they're not taking the existence of a God seriously.
Of course, it's easy to argue that God moved the continents, or that God did this, or God did this. Because, yeah, that is a lot easier to understand than complex geography and scientific principles. That sort of stuff does take a while to get your head around. It takes a lot of reading, it takes a lot of thinking, it takes a lot of understanding, and it takes a lot of different people doing a lot of different work for us to come to those conclusions, never mind for everyone else to then start to agree with them. It would be so much easier to say about everything we didn't understand, oh, well, God did it. Yes, that's easy, but that doesn't mean it's the right answer.
That's not what I said, and that's not what I'm asserting in my video.
That doesn't mean it's the right explanation. And I don't understand why we need to stop giving naturalistic evidence for natural processes. That just doesn't make sense to me. I mean, with this particular example of...
I never said that you should stop giving a naturalistic evidences for naturalistic processes. You have to assume that all processes are naturalistic. I mean, geez, girl, at least I know you don't have enough respect to even understand the point I'm making.
The continents, we have observations, we have evidence. Why would we want to ignore that just to favour something like, well, God did it, which is a concept that we have no evidence for? Why would we want to ignore...
Yes, we do. We do have evidence for the concept of God, and though it may not fit your beliefs about the universe, it sure does explain why space-time had a beginning, why there is intelligent design, why there is fine-tuning in the universe, and why we have free will. I'll leave some links below in my description which helps to explain why these ideas would lead any logical person to deduct the existence of a God. And these deductions are based on observable fact. Ouch. So my beliefs are random, huh?
Actual evidence for some random belief. It doesn't make sense.
because they're always looking for naturalistic explanations, no matter what it is. They don't believe in miracles, and the core to their...
You watch the videos that I post in the description below, and you tell me if these beliefs are random.
To all their questions is whether or not they believe in a God.
Well, this just goes back to what I said about God. I'll believe in miracles when you show me evidence of miracles. Show me a miracle that's happened. Show me that nothing else...
The fact that our universe came into existence to begin with is a miracle in and of itself, and this is explained in the video I provide explaining fine-tuning of the universe. However, just because you haven't seen a miracle happen doesn't mean that what you've seen is any more valid than those who have seen miracles. I'm sure most atheists go around the world traveling to see evidence for miracles, right? Huh. Lastly, there is enough reason, at least for us, to believe that Jesus rose from the dead, and we believe this because of the numerous testimonies provided by his followers and the horrendous torture some of them went through for what they claimed to have actually paid witness to. They weren't little kids who were indoctrinated to believe in some random belief. They were grown men who held the same beliefs as all other Jews, but who actually saw things with their own eyes and died for what they had claimed to see.
Could have caused it except God, and then I'll start to believe it. Show me proof that God did it. Show me proof that it wasn't just pure luck, pure chance. Show me that it wasn't some other person or natural influence making it happen. Show me that it could only possibly have been God, and then I'll believe. It's not that as an atheist my mind is completely closed to these things. I'm just saying that...
And how would one show you that? How would one be able to convince you that this miracle was caused by God? Please explain that, and then we'll be able to do that.
I don't have any reason to believe because I've never seen proof of these things.
The true skeptic always takes into account the possibility of the existence of a God, but they will also take into account the accuracy of the biblical text with what we see.
I think enough has been said so far, guys. I'll leave a link to my video below and a link to Rachel's video. I hope you guys enjoyed the video and have a blessed day.